Hey, it's Kirkpatrick with Gnarly, and in today's video, I'm going to show you some of the things I do when getting a brand new wheel ready for use, whether it's off-road racing or trail riding. The first thing you're going to want to do when getting a new wheel ready for use is to get some Gorilla Tape and go around the wheel so that it protects the inner tube, or if you're running a bib moose, it'll protect that from getting damaged by the spoke nipple. So I get black Gorilla Tape and I do a full round around the wheel, and then I do it again going the opposite direction to make sure that there's plenty of protection between the spokes and whatever you're using, whether it's an inner tube or a bib moose. Once you've got the tape installed, then I'll go and I'll make a hole for the rim lock, and I'll install the rim lock, and then that's the only thing that I'm gonna do, because I don't need a hole for the valve stem because I run the Michelin bib moose. So for me, I'm just gonna go and make a hole in the tape for the Motion Pro rim lock and install that, and then I'm gonna get started on installing a brake rotor and a Renthal rear sprocket. When it comes to the brake rotor that I choose, I use a solid rotor. I found that I get a lot better pad life and have less brake issues with the solid rotor. I run it in all conditions, dry, wet, hot, cold. I always run a solid rear rotor, and for me it's been the go-to setup for years as far as brakes go. I'm a brake dragger, and I have tested what kind of heat the solid rotor has compared to a slotted rotor, and while the rotor runs hotter, the caliper itself actually runs cooler with the solid rotor. I always use Loctite when I'm putting bolts on because I don't want something to back out on the rotor side or the sprocket side. So you'll always see, as you'll see in the video, I use Loctite on the sprocket and the brake side. And when it comes to the sprocket bolts, you always want to make sure that they're clean. So if you're starting with a wheel that's old and used bolts, make sure you take a wire brush and clean off the residue that may have been left behind from Loctite. And then I also use a wire brush if it's a used wheel, and I make sure there's no dirt or anything on the surface that the sprocket is going on, because you want that to mount completely flush. If you've got a bunch of residue built up and the sprocket's cockeyed, you can get, you can make, the bolts may feel tight when in actuality, when you start riding, and that's when you have a sprocket loosen up on the hub and then you ruin a wheel, or break a sprocket and your race is done. So those are just a couple of things that I do when I'm getting a wheel ready for off-road racing. The final tip that I have really applies more to racing than it does trail riding. This is a time-consuming thing to do, but it's something that can, in the event of a spoke failure, keep you from ruining your rear brake caliper. So what I'll do on a race set of wheels is I'll go around, and every spot that the spokes cross each other, I will put safety wire around that area. I'll do 2 loops and then tie it off and cut it and fold the sharp part away. But what this does is, in the event that you break a spoke, the spoke is not gonna come out to the side and damage your swing arm or damage your rear brake caliper. It doesn't necessarily strengthen the wheel or any of that. This is solely to prevent damage in the event of a spoke failure. And so as you can see in this video clip, this is a caliper that I had get damaged from a spoke on a wheel that I had not done this modification and put the safety wire on. And as you can see, the spoke, every time it went around, it smacked the caliper and scraped up the metal really bad. So this modification is just to help minimize damage in the event of a spoke failure.